The Midwest, 570 WNAX.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to your afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Danielle Drotzman, your host here for 570 WNAX. Thanks for joining us here today on this Tuesday. Well, we are kicking off your program here today with a special guest we are excited to have on. I have with me Royce Shanneman. He is the Executive Director of the Nebraska Wheat Board. So, Royce, thanks for joining us here today on WNAX. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm glad I was able to be on the show today and look forward to visiting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited to kind of hear about what's been going on down there in Nebraska with the wheat industry. So like I mentioned, you're the Executive Director of the Nebraska Wheat Board. So maybe just fill us in on who the Nebraska Wheat Board is and what you guys do for producers.
Well, the Nebraska Wheat Board is the checkoff program for the Nebraska wheat industry. So we collect a checkoff on the first sale of wheat when it's marketed, and the 7-member board of directors that are producers from across the state invest those funds into some major project areas like research, marketing, promotion, and education. And we've got a number of projects under those pillars that we work on. But basically, it's an investment in ourselves to promote our own industry.
Absolutely. So definitely seems like you guys stay very busy there for sure. So I guess up here in South Dakota, we have been hearing just a lot about the conditions in Nebraska. So maybe first just fill us in on how the summer's kind of been going so far and what you've kind of been hearing from your wheat producers.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, and you guys have probably heard, it's been hot and dry for the most part this early spring and summer, and that even translates back into last fall. At planting time, we had good moisture and good growth and development on the crop. We were actually getting to a point where we were wanting the temperatures to cool down and slow that wheat down going into dormancy. But then we had that dry, open winter, a lot of extreme temperatures and a lot of wind. So we had some concerns then. And then as spring and summer came along, we had high temperatures really early. And then we also had some really late freeze and frost events that really had the crop somewhat confused on what to do. Should it stay dormant? Should it break dormancy? But basically, we broke dormancy earlier than normal, so the crop all year has been anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the normal schedule. And then, of course, those late freeze events weren't very good because as the crop was ahead in development, that growing point of the plant was out of the ground and received a little bit of damage. And we're starting to see all the effects of the drought conditions and the late freeze events and everything as we're just getting into harvest now.
Gotcha. And yeah, we've been hearing a lot about just the kind of the poor winter wheat condition, I guess, down in Nebraska. So I guess you said you are harvesting or starting to get going with that. So maybe how's that going?
Well, harvest has really just taken off, and typically harvest for us is July 4th. We start, and it runs from the southeast part of the state and moves north and west. With the conditions I just described and the crop kind of being all over the board, we have harvest going on in all parts of the state right now, and early reports are they're not great. We're seeing most of our yields in the 30 bushel per acre range. Proteins have been high or higher than normal, and that's typically brought on by drought conditions. So that's totally not unexpected. But like I said, it's so varied harvest is going on all across the state, and instead of following that general pattern. Just getting into harvest, fairly heavily. I don't have a lot of reports on quality or yields and things like that being this early, but like I said, we're seeing some of the early yields being around that 30 bushel per acre, and proteins have been reported a little bit higher than normal, and normal for us would be 11.5 to 12.5%.
Gotcha. All right. Well, maybe we'll just have to reach out here a little bit later and see how progress is coming on when you got a little bit more information. But I guess kind of switching gears, I'm sure you've got a lot of producers that have planted spring wheat. So is that moving along pretty well at the moment? I know Nebraska has gotten some rains in some areas. So I guess what's the update on the spring wheat crop?
Yeah, the spring wheat producers that we do have, typically this time of year is when that plant is flowering or starting to fill the heads and starting to, get to that end point. And we don't have quite as much spring wheat as South Dakota. But because typically during that flowering and head fill period, we tend to be hot and dry, which isn't conducive to good yields. But, we plant somewhere between 10 to 20,000 acres of spring wheat. Most of that is maybe in the northern panhandle, and then we do have one small pocket of producers that like to grow it down in the southwest corner of the state because it works better in crop rotations. But I would have said things were fairly favorable for them until this week. We're supposed to be really hot and dry, and that's at a critical time for that crop as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, have you heard, are there any diseases or crop health or insects that have really been kind of an issue this year, or any update on that front?
Well, for the most part, with the dry conditions, that really cuts down on insect and disease pressures. But, late in our growing season for hard red winter, we did have a little bit of rain in a few spots in the state. We did see some leaf rust and stem rust show up. Barley yellow dwarf has been a problem, and then, and I guess I say problem, but not significant, but it's shown up. And then some trace amounts of head blight and stem sawfly. But overall, very minimal on the disease and insect pressures.
There you go. Good to hear. I guess that's kind of a positive. So I guess kind of switching gears here a little bit. I know kind of a big topic here within the industries right now is just kind of getting youth involved. And I saw on your website that you guys have an internship program available through the Nebraska Wheat Board. So would you maybe want to fill us in on that and maybe where we could learn more information on that program?
Yeah, we always like to work with youth, whether it's 4-H, FFA, ambassador programs, internships. So it's always a great way to connect with those students and have them be involved in an industry that they're interested in. So we offer a summer internship and also a part-time internship during the school year. And we kind of pull them into everything that we do. So, depending on their area of study and what they're interested in within the industry, we always have projects and programs that would fit just about anything. But the students get the chance to go out and do some trade shows. They go with us to host trade teams, visit farms, so they get the full gamut of events and activities that we do, but then they also get some office experience working in an office setting, learning the office procedures. So it's very beneficial for them, being able to get those skills as well as those face-to-face interactions with producers and millers and baking companies. So it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And to learn more information about that, is that just found on your website?
Yes, if there's interested students, look at nebraskawheat.gov. That's on our About Us page. They can find the application. And in fact, for the school year, internship applications are due July 17th. So they've got a little bit of time.
Yes, they do. That's coming up fast here. It'll be here before we know it. So I guess with that, Royce, did I miss anything or anything to wrap up with and leave our listeners with here today?
Well, I've got a couple things that I'll add on that'll be of interest to your listeners. When we were talking about the current year's crop and where we're at, one thing I wanted to mention is we're looking at about 40% abandonment of our crop this year due to the drought conditions. So that'll, certainly affect what producers do next season. But I will say producers are very resilient, very optimistic. They're already looking towards next year, and of course, seed availability and things like that will be of concern. But at least, maybe this year wasn't so good, but we've got producers already asking a lot of questions about varieties coming up for next year and looking forward to the next growing season.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Royce, thank you for joining us here today and filling us in on Nebraska wheat. So you have a great rest of your day, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Again, that's Royce Shanneman. He is the Executive Director of the Nebraska Wheat Board, joining us here today on your afternoon 5-State Farm Report. So with that, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll take a look at your markets here with your commodity wrap. So stay tuned.
It's a garage sale without the garage.
Didn't need them then.
A flea market without the fleas.
Don't need them now.